Yeah, I wanted to review secondary charts as well. And Roku's still top of that list, guys. This chart is really nice. We've talked about the Wyckoff accumulation here, with this, in my opinion, being the spring underneath this old swing low back here from October 23rd, or October 2023. I think it was the 30th. But once again, kind of that three lower low fashion, with each one becoming smaller and smaller. Good buyers stepping in at the lows, and then you get that nice markup. What we really want to get is not necessarily the bottom, although that is nice to time. You want to get the breakout and then the pullback into one of these previous lower highs, or like the midpoint. Sometimes we'll call it the equilibrium, or a base into the gap, right? So I was looking for this to hold into this gap fill at 68, and it did fail through. But it looks like it's pulling back, and we can kind of extend this through back to these previous lower highs, or the equilibrium of this trading range, right? So this is a beautiful, beautiful spot for kind of like your LPS, right? Or SOS if you guys want to call it that. Chart looks super good. I was looking to long it really off of this gap here. 63.02 would kind of be my line in the sand, but it looks like it's defending 60. I think it's 64 something, 64.39, which is the top of this progression gap. And obviously, it's your high volume footprint candle, and they're trying to defend that open right around that general range. Now, if we tie our focus to the weekly here, chart looks so good, guys. Like, it looks so good. It looks like just a simple breakout, pullback back into this spot. It could, like I said, it could come down to this fair value gap here. I probably wouldn't stick around for that. Really, right, my 59.89 could be a re-entry here. How did I get that level? It's simply this old gap here. I should actually pull it down a little bit lower, 59.70. This is where I really wanted to see us reclaim above, and we did get it back here, right? Once we got this candle rejection, we broke down. We ended up kind of selling or keeping a nice tight candle near the close here on the 16th of August, and then really opened at that, broke through, and haven't looked back since. But I might look at it again in that general range, but you guys can even just see here, right? If I just reset the chart, how tight this thing is. But yeah, very simple 2-bar pullback here, low volume, which we want to see, which is a good sign of mitigation. Right back into your weekly 21.9. I don't really care too much about that. It's more so the pullback into these weekly highs here, now acting as a potential support. So we just want to see this continue up and through, right? We didn't actually fill this gap, right? You guys will notice that these tweezers here really were just shy of that level. So there's still a target with a pullback being had simultaneously, right? So once again, just looking for like a 72 call. We could go further out if you guys want to really target the upside here. So 94 calls, 95 calls. Those would need to be much further out. But I'll probably be looking at like October 18th. Or November 72 calls, just to target this gap up here that is unfilled. And I would be looking to add off either 63 or 64.39, right? Very simple chart here, and yeah, targeting 72. Okay, second chart here is Starbucks. We can't ignore this one. This is a pretty fundamental one in my trading system. This is a gap trap with, it's not a peg candle, right? It's definitely a large move with a footprint candle obviously being here. And buyers are defending the gap and holding the open very nicely here from that August 13th massive gap up, right? Now this is an interesting one because we don't have necessarily a strong candle defending this gap here. It just had this long lower wick. I would have preferred to have seen this have a much higher volume and some kind of hammer, indicating that sellers tried to get short into this gap but got trapped, with buyers now stepping in and forcing a hammer. And then end of day, you'll have a lot of buyers step in as well that force the gap up, and then you'll get that short cover, right? Or just people alleviating, right? Getting out of their shorts and either flipping long, or the pressure from selling their shorts help push this up. But this is something to just keep on watch. Once again, it's not my favorite because we don't have the highest volume here, but it's a very clean setup with a gap defense, a gap trap potentially being there. If we take a look at the weekly as well, right, you would literally look for this to just push back up. I would say to set 94 to 95, somewhere in this general range up here where these weekly highs are. But overall, right, chart looks pretty good. If it does break down into the gap, I would like to see it sell a little bit further down. I know some people get super overzealous if it just like slightly snaps in, they'll go short. I would prefer this actually to do something like this, where it sells more aggressively and creates some distance into this gap, and then look for the retest, get in, right, and then add on lower highs. And obviously your break of structure would be off of that first level, right? So could be a two-way setup here, just something to keep your eye on. If it does sell and create some range or some distance off of that gap and then retest, target would obviously be the gap fill here at 77, but you have to also not ignore other parts of the chart. I think this would be an important equilibrium midway through the gap, which was this midpoint. And there's a lot of gaps on this chart, so bear with me. From this gap to this gap here, right? So you got to think this gap was never filled here, and I'll change the color so it looks a little bit different for you guys. Like we'll just make that one black. So there's two gaps here that are technically unfilled, right? So this range can move very quickly, but you have to think if it does start to sell down, this will obviously probably act as a support, and you could get, you know, something like this where it does sell down, but then gets a huge bounce off of that. Maybe it fills this. It would already be filled if it makes its way down, but you know what I'm saying, guys. There's still going to be positions waiting here, and then it'll probably maybe come back down. It could get really messy at that point, but definitely a chart to kind of keep your eye on. Starbucks for sure on the watch list. Number 3, it's Nike. I love this chart. This chart looks super sick. If you guys remember, right, I did say like it's the same thing over and over, guys. Hopefully you guys can see this. It's like the 3 lower low. This was actually 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it technically was 3. Same exact thing. New lows being made were very, very small. This was also, if you guys remember, I had this marked out. This was the gap from back during COVID. So a really big, important spot for accumulation to kind of happen. And we saw it happen in the exact blueprint that we look for. And obviously we had a nice markup. We had these really clean close, or 2 candle closes here with a 3rd bar gap up into our gap here. Remember, I actually was looking for 82 or something like that. It was like 82.5, and it obviously extended beyond that. But now, right, remember, you don't always have to catch these. You just want to catch the pullback, and this is pulling back very nicely into the top of this daily gap here around 79.05. Remember, the gap technically is right here at 77.12, but we can loosen this up a little bit because look what happened here. Once we got these tweezers here, look what happened. Right, we ended up gapping up again. So now, not only is this daily gap going to have some importance, it's going to have even more importance because there was a secondary gap that occurred here. Now, technically, yes, I know, it's technically here at this close. So you could just open this up a little bit and make it like this, where you just have 2 little spots here where you can have like a little zone drawn. I like to do this from time to time. Right, we'll just extend this way. If I can grab it, oh my gosh, it's too small. There we go. Right, we'll make that green. So that's kind of like my buy zone, if you will, where I'll be looking to take calls on Nike. But the daily may not look the best to some of you guys, but that's why it's so important to tie in your other time frames and also take a look at the volume and how these two are overlapping with each other, right? So volume very, very well mitigated after this nasty breakout to the upside, right? As a seller, you just want to get this back to break even, right? Whether you were shorting the gap, whether you were, short down here, which doesn't make too much sense, but look at the pullback that's occurring here on the weekly. Very, very nice. Once again, after that big breakout week, which was here, right? Harmonic breakout with the high volume, and then the 3-bar pullback on the weekly on decreased volume, retesting once again the gap here. And this is just such a good chart to own as well. I think there's going to be a lot of buyers that viewed this opportunity. If I'm not mistaken, I think Bill Ackman disclosed that he was also taking a large stake in this as well. So this is a value play here as well. So any kind of pullback or opportunity where people can get in on any kind of relative strength, relative weakness, right? I think people are going to be buying this stock no matter what, just because Nike's going to be here for a long time. People are always going to wear clothes, right? And there's still an upside gap here at, I believe, 93.77, unless I just didn't clean up my chart. Yeah, so 93.77. So that weekly is really what I'm looking at. So maybe a swing on this one. Remember, guys, I wouldn't say some. I put some emphasis on this, that with my swings, I'm going to be looking at like 5 contracts. I'm not going to be looking at anything crazy. So 5 contract max swing here, but definitely something I want to get some exposure on. If you guys want to take shares, it's not financial advice, but I might do the same just because opportunity beyond 93.77 is here, right? If you guys can see, I haven't changed my colors up, but there's also a gap way, 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 way up here, right? So 121 to 110. And that's not even me. That's just me taking the wicks on the daily. So there's still a little bit more room beyond that. But a really good chart here, guys. And there's one even up here. Chart is just filled to the brim with gaps, guys. So 100. So this could actually be a really nice share play as well. I just wanted to bring it to your guys' attention. So, and this is the perfect opportunity, in my opinion, to get long Obviously, October 1st is their earnings, so it's a binary event. I would just obviously play that a little bit safer. That's why I do think shares would be a really good opportunity as well. If you can catch a quick bounce off of this spot, take profits on that, and then just hold the shares, right? And not really pay too much attention to those is kind of my game plan. Okay, last but not least is Kava once again. I kind of just took this one. I think I took it on Thursday or maybe Wednesday. And it worked out, but remember, if I took it and it was right after, or maybe during my TSM loss, my TSM drawdown. I think I took it right here, if I'm not wrong. I'll have to go back and let the log and look, but I'm pretty sure I took it here on the breakout, what I thought was a breakout through these highs here at 114, and I was trying to target the 118 level, and what ended up happening, right, was it just kind of sold off, and it made a higher low, right? I think I may have just gotten out of that because of the drawdown on TSM, and I didn't want to have anything open, but really pulled back, higher low, and then it had a nasty move up to that 118 spot. And now, if you guys remember the 118 level that I was talking about, I did say, right, that it was more than likely going to trade through that Tuesday open, right, on that short week. And then obviously I was trying to get long here, but what it ended up doing was trading straight up into this spot, filled the gap here, right? It didn't quite get it, but it's pretty close. Oh, sorry, right here. It did get it. Boom. So right there, if you guys can see that, it was going to trade into that like 118.40 level, and then obviously it sold off, it broke back up, and now it's holding, right? And this kind of, I wouldn't say this is your, it kind of is a break of structure a little bit, but it's holding this previous midpoint. It's also holding Tuesday open. It's holding kind of like this lower high range. So if we can get some kind of open once again and just price development right around here, right, I do think that it can ultimately trade up into this gap that's unfilled here. Right now, let's just move some of our lines a little bit, so bear with me. You guys take a look. There was that big gap down from Monday. Was it Monday? My days are all messed up, guys. Whatever this gap down was, Monday. Okay, yeah, Monday going into Tuesday, right? So Monday into Tuesday, there was that big gap down. I think that this can trade right back up into that, right? Long story short, kind of looking at this as well, what else has happened across the market? And I've talked about this before. Relative weakness broadly across the market. The S&P, if we take a look at QQQ, right? There's just a lot of selling that's been occurring. Whereas Kava has stayed relatively strong, right? This has not sold off. It's actually closed in a hammer, albeit not that much volume. But it's good to see that this is going against the grain here. So if the market does take a nice little twist and start to have some buyers step in, I do think that this can outperform. And like I said last week, right, I think this has an opportunity to push up into that 125.80 target. So I would be looking at 125 calls. Same kind of structure as last time, right? I might be looking for calls if it can hold right below, or I'm sorry, right above this 116.13 level, right? Just kind of develop some kind of price just in this zone here. And then I would expect a push and break into the start of the gap right around here at 120. And then if it can base that, if that's possibly a secondary entry, let's just extend this out really quickly for you guys. It would look like that, right? Very simple, very, very simple. 125 call, like I said, I would probably be looking at like 0920 expiration. This name could definitely get moving. This name, like I said, has stayed relatively strong. So if the market is performing strong with this still holding, I think this name can move very, very quickly. So this is something I for sure want to have on target. Another one too, not my favorite per se. I definitely didn't take this. This name is crazy, but it does have earnings on September 10th. So just kind of watching this, right? If it can obviously snap through this spot here, it's very simple. It's 23.92. The significance of this too, if you guys remember, this was the old progression gap, right? Remember the buyers definitely stepped in here at the close from May 24th. Right here, you guys can see this was the unfilled gap. It bounced, higher low, broke out, higher low. So it does have potential to make a higher high, and I'd rather trade this on momentum than be kind of stuck in like a slow IV crush, right, in consolidation. I want to trade momentum on this, so if this can break through 23.92, I think it's 23.92. I'm sorry, 24.69, I apologize. If it can do that, I do think it has potential, guys, and there's a small little target here that I have between this, right, that would kind of be my spot with potential, right, and this is the lower high that was made, to go to 29.79. We could just round that to 30. So just for your imagination, you can get something like this, trade into this little pocket here, and then potentially, right, give you like some kind of flag, break out, maybe a base or some kind of consolidation, and then push to 20 or 29.79, aka 30. But something just light on watch. I'm not really too fond of it just yet because earnings, like I said, are right around the corner on Tuesday. I can only imagine IV is going to be insane. Could get like some kind of IV crush, maybe from earnings it has a move up and then it sells back down to retest this high here. That could be a potential play. But yeah, definitely something just to keep your eyes on for a momentum trade. I might use like $500 or something pretty light on this one, just because I don't like how it's been trading lately. Right, this is not fun to be a part of, but definitely something I don't want to ignore. But that's going to conclude any secondary charts. I did want to include some bullish options on here as well. And then I think I broadly touched on this. If we take a look at Qs, we're right at this. Ooh, this looks terrible. Let's make this orange. I think I was using a dark screen last night. If we make it orange really quick, you guys can see this is right at that 618 from this swing low to the current lower high or the current swing high. And it's not picture perfect, right? Remember I talked about how we had these daily equal lows here, right? We did have this little gap down. I was hoping that maybe this could be our support. It also ties decently nice into this old weekly high. So this is just an area to be looking at. And I do have those QQQ swings that I still hold for December. I was just kind of just looking at it, right? I don't think we're going to make a new low. And I know I talked about this with AMD, how I think this is going to take out the swing low. There's going to be some relative weakness on some of these names, right? But I think broadly, we're going to have some other names outperform, right? And I think Qs, you take a look at the distance too. The distance between this to the swing low is not that far, whereas QQQ has a lot more distance to kind of carry to get to that point. So honestly, I think this is the low. I did mention this. I think that right here, this footprint candle from August 5th, I think that's bottom for the year, if I'm being 100% honest. So we'll see how this ends up opening. I think I want to start adding into QQQ. Even, if we open in this general area, I'll add here. If we start to sell down a little bit more, I may add a little bit more like down here, especially if we kind of tie into this little old progression gap here. I'm not really afraid of this, right? I think that this area is going to hold. But yeah, I'm going to be looking to just kind of add into those QQQ December 20th calls. I have the 500, if you guys remember. I think it's time to reinvigorate those, but I think they're trading right around 4.84. Obviously the market too, if you guys take a look here, put on extended hours, I think it gapped down a little bit too. Yeah, so it ended up going a little bit further than the closing price here. So these might open at like 4.6, 4.5, and those are really nicely priced in my opinion for a swing all the way out till December. Like 3 months away, guys. That's a long time. And there's still a lot that has to happen. But yeah, I'm for sure going to be looking to add into those likely this week, because I think this week will be the last week of discount, right? I think this is CPI coming up, and that's pretty much it in terms of news this week. FOMC is going to be next week. So I definitely want to get some exposure on that. I don't think I want to pass 10 contracts. I did say I know for swings I want to stick around 5, but I was just doing the math on this, right? These have potential to go to like $2,500 if we get that push up to where I think we can go, right? If we can get that move all the way back up to 496.72, those contracts will go crazy. I think like I said, they'll push like $2,200 to $2,500. So if I can get 10 contracts on this right around like a 3.5 to like a 4 average, I think these cons will go crazy. I could turn roughly like $4,000 into about 2,300, or I'm sorry, 23,000. And that's good enough for me, right? I think that would be nice. That would be a nice mitigation just to passively have to mitigate the TSM loss that I had, and then get a little extra. But yeah, this will be a nice swing, I think, to have in the back pocket. But overall, just wanted to jump on here. I think that this is the low from August 5th. I've said it multiple times. And then on the weekly, I think that this is just literally a higher low potential, right? Obviously, we pushed down. We caught a higher low here, lower high, and then we're selling off. But the sell-off has not been, I don't think it's been fully captured by bears yet. There's still really nice potential here. And I haven't even looked at MAs or anything like that. Obviously, we're kind of rounding down a little bit on those, but yeah, dude, I have a feeling this is the low here. I really do. So I'm going to be looking to take another add into those December contracts.